Cody Keenan, can I ask you to come to the front of the stage? Cody Keenan, your career has been shaped by a simple yet powerful belief: words matter. Rising from a campaign intern in Chicago to White House chief speechwriter for President Barack Obama, you collaborated on speeches that inspired civic engagement and promoted the importance of being a global citizen. A graduate of Northwestern University and Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government, your journey in public service began as an aide to Senator Edward Kennedy, and you now share your expertise in politics and current affairs as a partner at Fenway Strategies and as a professor at your alma mater, where you teach the next generation of writers how to harness the artistry and power of rhetoric with integrity and purpose. A storyteller at heart, your New York Times bestselling book, Grace, President Obama and 10 Days in the Battle for America, illustrates the extraordinary path you have walked, writing momentous speeches in partnership with the president that mark the history of our nation. Noting that being a speechwriter requires having a sense of empathy, you believe that understanding different groups of Americans and people around the world and walking around in their shoes is vital to your craft. Such affinity for humanity mirrors the heritage and tradition of the Sisters of Mercy that began with Catherine Macaulay in 19th century Dublin. For your contributions to American political discourse and commitment to shaping a more thoughtful, engaged democracy, Salve Regina University hereby confers upon you, Cody Keenan, as an honorary member of the class of 2025, the degree of Doctor of Humanities, honoris causa, with all its attendant rights, privileges, and responsibilities on this 18th day of May in the year 2025. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I feel like I'm dubbing you.
Thank you.
You are. And stay right here, and then we will. Wonderful. Today, we are not only honored to confer upon Cody the degree of Doctor of Humanities, we also have the privilege of having him as our 2025 commencement speaker. Friends, please join me in welcoming Dr. Cody Keenan.
Go Seahawks! Go class of 2025! Good, because I saw most of you at O'Brien's last night. That was a test. My wife and I acted our age and went to Buskers. I wrote with Barack Obama for 14 years, which means I've written a lot of these, jam-packed with all kinds of wisdom, advice, inspiration. But I have been saving my best material for you. So let's go. To President Armstrong, thank you very much. Chairperson Murkowski's sister Therese, to Senator Reid, Governor McKee, Mayor Holder, to everyone in the Salve community and everyone who raised these graduates. I have been so excited to come spend this day with you. And to receive an honorary doctorate. This is going to change things at home. I can feel it. Oh, doctor, the baby pooped. It's your turn. Let me know if you need some more wipes, doc. And you know what? Just because I'm up here and I just want to give a shout out to the pitches. That was beautiful. Shout out to all the pitches. And a shout out to your professors. As a professor, I can tell you we're just normal people of above average wit, charm, attractiveness, who feel a desperate inner need for our students to like us. So to those of you who nod along with everything we say in class, it's true, we liked you best. Now, as someone who teaches 22-year-olds, I take it personally when people rag on you and your generation. Sure, you're really annoying, but that's been true of every graduating class since 1946. But you've had a particularly tough go. You were born into a time of war. You were shaped by a great recession. The pandemic stole vital years. You are every day besieged by the dystopamine drip of social media, the steady deterioration of our climate, and a politics that, let's be honest, hasn't been all that inspiring since you were in middle school. And as it turns out, there's a tablespoon of microplastics in everybody's brain, which might actually explain our politics. But the point is, I know that it feels like there's nothing you can count on, like everything is up for grabs. But that too is true of every generation. My senior year began with 9/11, and it changed the way I saw the world and my place in it. When I graduated, there was no LinkedIn, no remote work, so I packed a bag and moved to Washington. I had no connections either, but I figured I went to a good school, I watched The West Wing, how hard could it possibly be? I saw a posting for an internship with Ted Kennedy, Senator Kennedy of Massachusetts, who was widely considered the greatest legislator alive. And I was talking with Senator Reid before this, and he said, don't forget, he was also fundamentally and often quietly kind. And I wanted that internship. So not knowing how anything worked, I Googled his chief of staff's name and called the Senate switchboard asking for her. They did not put me through. I did, however, talk to the intern coordinator who hired me over the phone. How awesome am I? Well, as it turns out, she'd later tell me she only hired me because it was 5 p.m. on a summer Friday and she was halfway out the door. But I was in the door. I started in a windowless mailroom making copies, getting people's lunch orders, walking the senator's dogs. But I worked hard and climbed the ranks, learning not just how a bill becomes a law, but how allies are made, how compromise is forged, how progress is won or stymied. I was even on the floor of the Fleet Center in Boston at the 2004 Democratic Convention when a state legislator from Illinois gave a speech that in just 16 minutes rocketed him from anonymity to the future of the party. Barack Obama, to this day, reminds me that he wrote that speech by himself. But here was someone who saw politics the way I wanted it to be, as an imperfect but an important endeavor where together we can do great things that we cannot do alone. Suddenly, I wanted to write speeches for a living. Senator Kennedy let me try out a few for him, and when Obama ran for president, a friend connected me with his speechwriter who, come to think of it, also hired me over the phone. And it changed my life. Not because it led me to the White House, but because it connected me to a sense of purpose and a worldview and a family. Now, I can't help you get your dream job at 28. And you shouldn't want to, because then you're going to peak at 34, and then you're going to spend the rest of your life trying to figure out what you want to do, and it requires a lot of therapy and writing a book, and I'm just going to save you from that. But I can offer you 3 pieces of advice that will help you navigate this fractured world in a way that is true, that will help you slice through the murk of hype and grift and AI slop to find and create something real. Now, as a speechwriter, I'm often asked, where do you find inspiration? And the answer is everywhere. Scripture, Irish poetry, Dr. King, or in the case of this speech, Mexican slang, the kid on the White Lotus, and the t-shirt on an old drunk in Key West. And that's how I've organized my counsel for you today. Imaginemos cosas chingones. I saw that on a sign in the wall of a Mexican restaurant a few weeks ago. And loosely translated, it means, let's dream up cool stuff. And the key word there is let's. We, us, together. By my mid-20s, our troops were bogged down in Iraq. The White House was sanctioning torture, and New Orleans drowned in a hurricane. Reality was bleak. And when it came to some of the people running for president, so were our choices. But rather than tune out, we did something different. We took over. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of 20-somethings who believed in a better story about America dropped what we were doing and moved into strangers' basements and spare bedrooms in Chicago and Iowa and New Hampshire and eventually every state in the country, giving 2 years of our lives to actualize the candidate that we wanted. And it wasn't easy. In retrospect, it looks easy, but people forget that just 2 months before the first votes were cast, Obama was down by 30 points. We were taking an enormous leap of faith, not knowing how it was going to work out. But in return, he took a chance on us, a bunch of young people of all races and backgrounds, trusting us with more responsibility than a lot of other campaigns would. We went out and did the hard work of talking to strangers, changing their minds, earning their support. We worked 14-hour days for little pay and less sleep because we didn't need those things in our 20s. We just needed each other. After a full day, we'd go to cheap bars, make lifelong friends, even meet future spouses. We had fun. That was the point. Nobody wants to join a movement that's dour or naggy or self-loathing. The work of making this country a better place, no matter how long the odds, should be a joyous, righteous struggle that adds people to your side. That's how we won. I know you were 5 years old, but it was awesome. You can ask your parents. I've gotten to write for the last Kennedy brother and the first black president, and I wouldn't trade any of it. But when I think about success, I don't think about good reviews for a speech. I don't think about flying on Air Force One or Marine One. I think about celebrating together, popping champagne on the Truman balcony the night we won healthcare for ultimately 50 million people. I think about joining thousands of strangers chanting USA out in front of the White House the night Special Forces smoked Osama bin Laden. I remember watching friends propose to each other the night that marriage equality became a reality. And I think about the dozens of weddings and hundreds of kids toddling around, including mine, who don't exist without that campaign. And yes, it is true, Obama is vexed that none of us have named our kids Barack. But all the best memories I have of my 2,922 days in the White House have those friends and my wife at the center. Now, as President Armstrong said, I work at a company called Fenway. We're the best team of speechwriters in the world, writes the coolest stuff for the coolest people. I teach at my alma mater, sending the next great speechwriters out into the world. I found my people. Wherever your path takes you, make sure you find yours. The pandemic forced you apart for long enough, and social media and AI are increasingly designed to keep you that way. Reject that. Imaginemos cosas chingonas. Let's go dream up and do cool stuff together. And as you do, try to do it in a way that makes things better, not worse. That's my second piece of advice, a quick one, inspired by Lachlan Ratcliffe, the youngest sibling on season 3 of The White Lotus. Settle down, no spoilers, not everybody's seen, okay? But he offers his take on a Buddhist monk. He says, I like that he's all about how to be the best person you can be and how to go through life without making shit worse for other people. With apologies to the sisters, it's sound advice. If there were a Hippocratic oath in politics, don't make shit worse for other people would be a good one. Help, don't hurt. Do good, not bad. You have spent 4 years cloistered on these cliffs, studying the 5 critical concerns of mercy: the earth, immigration, nonviolence, anti-racism, women. It is safe to say those are not the critical concerns of our politics right now, at least not in the way they should be. Collectively, all of us, we have let the idea metastasize that America is a zero-sum game, that helping someone else inherently harms me. That's not true. It runs contrary to the best of our history. In an era when cruelty and cynicism are rewarded, it is counterintuitive, almost countercultural, to be generous and big-hearted and sincere. But it's also contagious. So even if you think nobody can be trusted, that everybody's out for themselves, then be the example that the rest of us need to follow. To quote President Armstrong, "This is our time to show the world what a mercy education means, because the world needs us more than ever." So be proud to fight for the hungry, for the sick, for the stranger, for this planet, for the mother and child, for each other. People will follow you, and as long as you don't give up, neither will they. Which brings me to my third and final piece of advice for you today. I was down in Key West a few months ago. Our 9-month-old wouldn't nap, as 9-month-olds don't, so I took him for a walk. I stopped to grab a road beer. It's Key West. And I saw an old man sunbathing with a beer of his own. His skin was leather. His hair was long and ratty, his beard too, hanging down past his shoulders. But it was the words on his t-shirt that caught my eye. "Going straight is not the same thing as going forward." Your lives, of course, will not and should not follow a direct, uninterrupted path. That's boring. Failures, and you will have them, will open interesting new doors. Breakups, and you will have them, will teach you something new about yourself. Leaps of faith might not work out. Shake it off and move forward. The 250-year sweep of America is undoubtedly one of forward motion. But that hasn't followed a straight line either. A few years ago, as President Armstrong mentioned, I wrote Grace. And it's the story of the most improbable 10 days in recent political memory. They began in darkness. A young man, self-radicalized on the internet and obsessed with the Confederacy, joined a Bible study group at a black church in Charleston and murdered 8 parishioners and their pastor. He told police that he wanted to ignite a racial civil war. But the families of those victims extinguished those plans pretty fast. One by one, on live television, they forgave the killer. The person who took the people they loved most in this world away. They practiced what their slain pastor preached. Obama asked me to start working on a eulogy that confronted our long legacy of guns, race, and the Confederate flag, and to do it all through the lens of Christian grace. Because who doesn't love to spend 3 days in a curled-up panic on the office couch? At the same time, my team and I have been drafting remarks for Supreme Court decisions that would land that week on Obamacare and marriage equality. And we didn't know how they'd go. Millions of people could lose their health insurance. Millions more could be relegated to second-class citizenship, being denied the chance to marry who they love. What it meant to be an American felt very much up for grabs in that moment. But on the 9th day, the Supreme Court upheld a right to health care. On the 10th day, it unlocked the right to marriage equality. And as we flew to Charleston that afternoon to eulogize a pastor murdered for the color of his skin, Obama told me, "You know what, if it feels right, I might sing it." And he surprised an arena and the country with a chorus of Amazing Grace. And as we returned home and the sun went down on Washington, the White House lit up in all the colors of the rainbow. That was 10 years ago next month. To be there, in the middle of it, swimming in it, felt like America was escaping the restraints of our past and writing something new and exciting and even a little scary. And here's the important thing. None of it happened because of 1 week or one president or even one generation. We might have put those final dominoes into place, but we were the heirs to a 50-year movement and counting for gay rights, to a 100-year movement and counting for universal health care. 400 years of racial reckoning, and it still took a staggering act of grace from grieving families to convince the South Carolina legislature to bring down the Confederate flag that still flew over the State House and put it in a museum where it belonged. Progress on this journey, Obama said that final morning, often comes in small increments. Sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step back, propelled by the persistent effort of dedicated citizens. Going straight is not the same thing as going forward. Sometimes you might take 5, even 10 steps back. All progress is fragile. All of it is inherently at risk. But when enough of us choose not only to protect our own rights, but the rights of others, when enough of us choose to care not only about our own children, but the children of others, to demand something more of ourselves, of this country, and of each other, that's when you feel that arc of history bending in the right direction once more. And that, to quote my old boss, is what hope is. It is not the naive belief that things will get better. It is the conviction that if you work hard enough, for long enough, things can get better. It's seeing the world as it is, and even when it breaks your heart, fighting for the world as it should be anyway. And I can tell you from experience, there is purpose and wonder and joy and love to be found in that struggle. So find your people and dream up cool stuff with them. Make people's lives better, not worse. And with compassion and conviction, humor and joy, boundless faith and relentless hope, never, ever, ever stop moving forward. Thank you, Salve. Thank you, Class 25. Congratulations.